Again, we're really, really excited to have you here. Say hi.
Hi, Vera. Thank you so much. I'm excited and honored to be here.
Can you briefly explain to all of those who are listening, what is zero-party data? Why is it important? But first of all, what is the biggest difference between first-party data and second-party data and zero-party data? That's a loaded question.
Thank you for taking me a step back, because it in some ways might be like, oh, another marketing jargon, another term, but there is a fundamental and important difference between zero-party data, first-party data, and so on. So zero-party data, as defined by Salesforce, is basically data that a customer proactively and willingly shares with you, the brand, where you contrast that with first-party data, which is data that you're capturing from the customer, but it's not them saying, hey, this is what I want or this is what I'm looking for. It's more passively collected. So this could be things like transaction history. So what products they purchased, how much they've spent. Maybe from that you're extracting where they live based on the shipping address. It could be engagement with your site. So actions like add to cart, abandon cart, product pages visited, or tracking email engagement. That all falls under first party data, and you can get a lot from it. However, it does require that there are assumptions being made where if, for example, you see Gen is looking for this particular shampoo, you might assume that Gen has this particular hair condition or whatever. Zero party data, you know explicitly the customer is telling you what they're looking for. So the zero party data highlights the intent of what the customer is looking for, which can dramatically change how you're communicating and how you're merchandising the product. And then if we go down the line, second party data is basically when an organization is collecting the data and then selling it to another company, let's say Facebook. And third party data is that, but it's kind of aggregated in scale. And the difference there, the challenge is in terms of data quality. Where is this data sourced from? When is it sourced from? And so these are kind of like mixed together where it's polluted data, so to speak. So the accuracy of, hey, I want to target this person who's looking for wedding venues in the Bahamas. Well, you don't know when that was. And maybe you've been on the receiving end of remarketing ads or ads that are a little bit off target. And that's the reason that could be the reason, is that it's old data or it's kind of like polluted data that the advertiser is creating their campaigns around. Right.
And honestly, when they released that like iOS 15 update, I remember how like everyone was like panicking, like people didn't know what to do. But now when I look at it, it kind of is like a blessing in disguise, because it forced us to talk to our customers directly. And that kind of helped like a lot of brands that I work with to like remove that guesswork and assumptions about the consumers. And we changed so much just based on like those direct questions that we asked our customers. We learned sometimes that if this person is like shopping, just like you said, for like this shampoo, it doesn't mean that he has this like condition, right? But maybe he's shopping for his kids, and then we can like market it differently. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe they're using it for like different purposes or stuff like that. It actually helped us to better tailor to the needs of our customers, right? So I think that first party data and like zero party data is like so powerful when it comes to that personalization of the entire experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you talk about, and you're talking on behalf of brands kind of like specifically for email or SMS. And that's where, we directly integrate with Klaviyo, Attentive, Omnisend, and PostScript right now, expanding that list now. But the real value of this zero party data is how you're communicating with your customers and when you're communicating, what messages you send. And that's what you mentioned in your intro, sending the right message to the right person at the right time. And it's especially critical when you consider, for example, like SMS, where it's an extremely high open rate. But the downside is it's also extremely like delicate in terms of, getting the customer to unsubscribe. And so that's where we're seeing a lot of value that we're able to add is to, once a merchant gathers the data, then how they use that in terms of creating tighter segments or dynamically personalizing the emails or doing conditional splits in Klaviyo Flow. And this is stuff that we discuss, happy to discuss it more. but the data as it's used in guiding what communications you send out is really critical.
That's awesome. Yeah. So basically you said that you have a direct integration with Klaviyo. So once someone's like, say, answer the quiz about, I don't know, like the type of the skin or the type of the hair or like their preferences or whatever, where is that information stored again? Like on the back end of Klaviyo, how does it work?
Yeah, so all of our quiz data goes directly to Klaviyo. Once somebody completes a quiz, it goes to Klaviyo as a custom property and as a metric.
Yeah.
So this means that you can, kind of dynamically personalize. You can build out one email template or you can build out one flow, and then it can change depending on what quiz responses they gave. So for example, if you completed a quiz and your recommended product at the end was, product X and mine was product Y, I would get a post-quiz email, say, hey, again, yours is product Y. And Vera, yours is product X. But basically that it's a placeholder. It allows for emails to be built with placeholders, and then depending on what the recommended product is, you can insert it dynamically. And then from there also you're able to lay out far more specific flows and educational content, sharing different parts of the brand, which might be relevant based on what the customer is looking for, or the challenges they're facing. So yeah, it's really all about the getting a better understanding of what customers are looking for so that you can ramp up the relevance and therefore the engagement.
Right. And obviously that capturing of zero-party data can happen at different points of their journey. It can happen at the top of the funnel, at the bottom of the funnel, middle of the funnel. Let's talk a bit more about that. So first of all, like, what are interactive quizzes? And let's start from the top of the funnel. How are they can be used at the very beginning of customers' journey with the brand?
Yeah, so an interactive quiz is basically the equivalent of a conversation you might have with a sales associate at a brick and mortar store. So, you've walked into any retail store, or even like a coffee shop or wine bar. Hey, Vera, what are you looking for here? What brings you in here? And of course, it can be an open-ended question. The quiz is great because you kind of like build it out with the different customer paths in mind already. And it's a way to quickly and in a fun manner, ideally, get the customer from point A, where they are, they know that they have a problem to solve, to point B, the solution, their goal, their ideal end state. And once you understand what it is, those point A and point Bs, by asking the right questions, you're far more able to direct them there with the appropriate rationale and reasoning, the sizzle behind why they should care about your brand and why your product can get them there. So yeah, that's what an interactive quiz is. And generally it would include asking for a contact information, optional of course, but an email or SMS. And then it would be some kind of recommendation or categorization, whether it's a personality quiz or helping somebody to learn more about themselves. And this is really where the crux of a quiz, the success of it, lies on how you can create this intrigue or this curiosity gap. Vera, do you know what the right skincare routine is, because you live in Vancouver and you have this particular lifestyle, and so you'd be interested to learn more, and that's really plays to our human interest, our natural tendency to want to learn more about ourselves. So for top of funnel, that's really great, whether it's for a paid ad, whether it's on Facebook or a YouTube pre-roll or whatever it is. A paid landing page as a quiz is quite effective as a lead gen tool. You can also use it as a top of funnel for somebody who's landing on your site, kind of an organic visitor or direct visitor to your site. A quiz is a great place to start the customer journey, because you are capturing a lead and then you're learning more about that lead in the quiz. And, as we play towards the customer experience element of it, if you put your conversion rate optimization hat on, the whole goal of conversion rate optimization is to simplify the buying process, to directly address any objections or questions or concerns that you might have and address them directly, proactively. And a quiz allows you to do that once you're able to understand what those objections are, what those questions are.
That's really interesting because like as a brand owner or as a marketer, I always looked at those quizzes as the way for us to collect the data, you know? But that's interesting that you mentioned that you can kind of like establish yourself as an authority and like in that field and educate your customer as well. So the top of the funnel is like a great place for like building awareness, obviously drawing users to your website, but also like educating them, right? And establishing that like educational authority and like even building the credibility at some point, because people do appreciate when you're like educating them, when you're making their journey with the brand easier and when you like eliminate that like gap between them and the brand. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's, Robert Cialdini's influence. That was one of the key pillars of influence is authority, to establish authority. And you establish authority through expertise, and educating your customer establishes expertise in the most trustworthy and quick way. And so that could explain both the on-site experience. So one example that comes to mind is Trade Coffee. They're kind of like a subscription coffee brand. They'll ask, like, how do you like to prepare your coffee? What do you add to your coffee? Caffeinated or not, whatever, all these different questions. But then based on, as you're going through it, there's a little bit of some hints on why they're asking this or why this matters or how it can impact your coffee experience. And yeah, that's even post quiz. It plays into their communications. So yeah, the education part is huge in the middle of funnel. And then, it kind of amplifies more as you get towards the bottom of funnel. In this example, I think Helix Sleep, a mattress brand, is a great example. Mattresses especially because it's, $1,000 plus to buy a mattress. So it's not going to be a quick impulse purchase on site. It's going to be a heavily researched and thought through purchase. And so Helix has a great quiz on their homepage or throughout their website. And the data that they're gathering based on your sleep position, based on the pains that you're experiencing in your sleep, based on how many people are buying it and the size of mattress that you're looking for. All these factors to allow them to package their email, their SMS campaigns more strategically based on my specific needs that the zero party data that I share.
That's interesting. And like, what type of questions do you usually like recommend brands to ask? Like, where to start with the questions? How do I know what to ask my customers?
Yeah. It's a great question, and there's no right answer because of course it depends. But the way I recommend to start thinking about it is what data would be most helpful to you, the brand. What do you currently use to create segments on your backend, and what data would be most helpful specific to your niche or your industry or brand? And then from there, you can build out the questions. So at a high level, it might revolve around what the challenges that this person is experiencing, what their idea of success looks like, what their goal is, maybe what habits they have, what preferences they have. So this could vary dramatically, whether it's a wine brand that's using a quiz to identify the perfect bottle of wine, or it's a clothing brand like Stitch Fix or Rockets of Awesome that's kind of on a recurring basis sending out boxes. And that's where the size, of course, is critical, but then also the style preferences and what would ultimately be like ideal with my wardrobe. So questions of what to ask, I think are very specific to the type of brand that you have. But my overarching recommendation is basically just try and keep it as short as possible while gathering value with each question, and then ensuring that each question is engaging and doesn't get overbearing for the customer. Because whether you're sending, putting paid money behind it, paid traffic behind it, you really don't want to have a person drop out of the quiz because that's an opportunity lost to capture a lead and then recommend the right product.
Yeah. But I like how you mentioned that you don't necessarily have to ask the questions about the product itself, but also about like the lifestyle of your customers, right? Because sometimes the customers can tell you much more about how they use your products than you might know about. A week ago or like 2 weeks ago, I went to this like really fun meetup in Vancouver with a brand called Vessi. It's like a waterproof
the
shoes.
waterproof shoes.
Yeah, the waterproof shoes.
Yeah.
They're like super, super famous here in Vancouver. And Michaela, the founder of the brand, she was actually telling a lot of fun things about this, like zero-party data, how they collect it and stuff like that. And one of the questions that she said they asked their focus group was like this like super random question: how many pairs of shoes do you usually have by the door? And like, what are those shoes? And it kind of helped them to understand like how often people wear these shoes. Are this their like main shoes that they wear every day? If they wear it every day, how often the shoes will be like repurchased and stuff like that. So sometimes you don't have to necessarily ask the questions about the product itself, but more about the lifestyle to learn like how the product will be used, right? That was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, a similar example was Heidi Zak, founder of Third Love. Third Love is a women's lingerie brand, direct-to-consumer bras, basically, and they use a quiz to simplify the process of finding the right fit. And the beauty of a quiz is that it's all structured data, which means that it's easy to, it's all kind of uniform. So it's easy to manipulate, easy to withdraw insights from it, as opposed to say support tickets or sales calls where you kind of have very qualitative and so there are good insights there, but it's not going to be at scale. And so it's going to be harder to draw the insights from it. But Heidi Zak was running these quizzes to millions of people, got tens of millions of data points. One of which was that sizing is still an issue, which unearthed the opportunity that half sizes are a market opportunity. So that's how they kind of stumbled into product innovation by running these quizzes, at scale and seeing from the data, exactly like the Vessi founder, that there's this opportunity based on this data, and therefore we can move towards that. So the customer insights can be tremendous, and a quiz can solve that at a high level at the same time as the conversion element of it.
I mean, yeah, another story that she told was like about the persona, how they thought that the brand persona is like a one person, and then based on that like zero-party data that they collected, they realized that the biggest sort of like people group that is buying their shoes are actually nurses, like Vancouver or like Seattle nurses, people who like stand a lot, people who use the shoes all the time, they're always on their feet. And that was like interesting to learn, apparently, because they kind of changed the way Vessi markets their shoes completely. So that zero-party data, man, it's powerful.
Really interesting.
That's for sure. Yeah. And let's briefly discuss the bottom of the funnel too, because one thing I didn't realize until I started going through your blogs is that you can actually collect zero-party data at the bottom of the funnel as well. So what are they, and like how do you do that?
Yeah, in that, the bottom of the funnel is basically like, all right, we're moving towards a purchase. And so I think a quiz is particularly helpful for recurring subscription brands. And so that could be like a Stitch Fix or Scentbird, which is fragrance, or Rockets of Awesome, which is kids clothes. And it's because, they have recurring shipments that they send out, and the customer experience is critical, and the revenue relies on the customer keeping and buying the products that were sent. And so that's where a quiz at the bottom of the funnel really comes into play to hone in on specifically what products Vera wants to see in her box that's sent out on a monthly basis, or what type of coffee Gen wants in his monthly coffee box from Trade Coffee. And so a quiz is basically an onboarding step there where you're filling out forms. It could even be as clinical, on the more like customer qualification end. If you think of like a HIMSS or Romans, which are more medically focused. But yeah, at the bottom of the funnel, it could act as a lead qualification or as an onboarding form. These are the things that I want to see sent to me on a regular basis.
That's interesting. Okay, you've collected the data. What happens next? How can you use that data, that zero-party data, to personalize your customer's experience across all of your channels and especially across email?
Yeah, so for email and SMS, probably the quickest win might be segmentation. So like I was saying earlier, that the data comes through as a custom property. And so if it's, as an easy example, skincare brand, is your skin type dry, normal, oily? And so those are some simple things. Or it could be, what are your challenges? Is it acne, blackheads, rosacea, whatever? And as you layer on more custom properties, or as you learn more about what the customer's challenges are, or where they're coming from, their point A, then that can really change the types of educational content or the customer testimonials that you're sending. But it will help you categorize what's relevant and important to this type of person. So that's on the segmentation end. You can also personalize with how you are inserting the products. Like, it's very similar to an abandoned cart. Where that they were this close to purchasing, but they didn't end up purchasing. And, if you are able to send, 1 to 5, 7 emails post abandoned cart, you will with each email get an incremental lift in revenue of those who convert to actually purchase. And the same can be said of a post quiz experience, because that this is a recommended product. Why that product is recommended, as in the customer's quiz responses. Now, can you build flows around that? And it doesn't need to be an individual flow for each quiz permutation, but it could be at a high level, some that you're building in blocks based on, if this, then that, in terms of quiz responses will include this type of content. And so it's amplifying the relevance as well as the improving the likelihood of purchase.
That's really, really interesting. And definitely, from our experience, it all comes down to segmentation, but obviously to delivering the value, to delivering the right message to the right person at the right moment. It all comes down to that, always.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing those examples with us. Again, where people can learn more about your brand or about your pre-hook, where people can learn more about you, and if they have any questions, how they can reach you?
Yeah, so my website, or the website is prehook, prehook.com. And of course, check that out, or feel free to email me directly, GEN at prehook.com. And then we also have a great resource on the website. I've been spending, past few years going through quizzes where we have about 125 of the best email quizzes or e-commerce quizzes available. And I believe it's prehook.com /best e-commerce quizzes. I can send it to you and then maybe add it to the show notes. But there's no opt-in required. But it's just a nice, easy way to see how versatile quizzes are, how different brands are using them, kind of like on the customer experience end, and then also from the merchant end to improve their marketing.
Thank you so much, Gan. I personally had so many good insights. I've never personally used that, quizzes. I use them as a user. I'm a huge fan of those BuzzFeed, quizzes, or different brand quizzes or whatever. I've done them all, but as a brand, it's really, really interesting how much insights you can get from your customers directly. That's so cool.
Totally. Well, Vera, thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you and share.
Awesome. Well, it was fun to have you again.
Hey, if you're watching this and you like what you see, please hit subscribe and hit the bell, because it helps us grow our channel.